Hello. So when I go on vacation, I often enjoy going to archaeological sites, particularly Roman ones. And ahead of the vacation, I'll often spend a lot of time collecting information. Some of the sites can be a little complicated and the hours of operation, how you gather tickets, those sorts of things. And so I thought I would try to put a video or two together on some of the sites that I visited that were maybe a little more on the challenging side. And so I set up a YouTube channel called Looking for Romans. Well, we'll see if that sticks. If you enjoy this video when you're done, I'd suggest if you could please like and subscribe, maybe leave a comment, and I'll know that it's useful to someone, and I will go ahead and make some more. The one I thought I would cover first is probably the most challenging site that I have visited, which is Munigua, which is about 30 some miles to the northeast of Sevilla in Spain. The site itself has a long history going back to at least the 4th century BC. Under the Romans, it was a center for mining in the surrounding area. I guess they also found some metal wastes and other things around the site, which tells them that. It was given Latin rights by Vespasian in 73 to 74 AD. And then kind of on an academic note, the town is famous for a bronze tablet that was located somewhere at the site during the excavations. And the tablet was made in 80 AD, and it documents the response from the emperor to a delegation that was sent to Rome to petition the emperor himself for redress for taxes that they owed and they refused to pay. Kind of not that unlike some folks today, I guess. Anyway, unfortunately for the town, the emperor at the time, Titus, upheld the debt in general. He reduced it a bit and he canceled the late penalties they owed for refusing to pay. But regardless of the outcome itself, the tablet provides really important information and evidence that towns were able to appeal directly to the emperor during the imperial period. The tablet itself is at the Archeological Museum at Sevilla. Unfortunately, when we were there, it was closed for renovations, and I think it's supposed to reopen sometime in 2025. So I hope it's open when you go, because it seems like it's very impressive, has lots of very good materials in it to see. Anyway, in my opinion, the most impressive archaeological remains on the site the massive podium which supported the temple sanctuary. Some compare it to the temple of Fortuna Primigena at Palestrina in Italy. It's a massive structure that sits at the top of the hill, and it really is actually holding the hill up. So I don't know how much of the site would actually be left if it weren't for this large concrete and stone structure. Very, very impressive. You can see it from quite a distance away. So here is a website that I suggest going over in detail. Going to Munigua is not extremely easy. There are strict hours for access, and you wouldn't want to spend a lot of time and effort getting there and then find out that the gates are locked. You'll see some reviews on some of the websites saying that that's happened to people, which is so they're pretty strict about it. When we went, the hours were Wednesday to Sunday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. It's closed on Mondays and Tuesdays, at least according to the website. As well, they're closed on a lot of holidays, but oddly enough, they're also open on several holidays. So that if you go to the website, I check there before you head out. It's highly recommended, at least I would highly recommend, that you get there at opening time. That's true of any of the archaeological sites, whether it's the Forum, whether it's Munigua, the Forum in Rome, Italica, which is north of Seville. If you get there right at the crack of opening or fairly soon after, you'll pretty much have the site to yourselves, as the tourists probably had a late night and the buses haven't arrived yet. So you can find you'll have a lot of these sites all to yourself. We got to this particular site at 10 a.m. and there was only one other couple there. But as we were leaving, there were lots of folks filing up the road, including a busload of school kids that were heading in. So if you go to the site, which I've got right here, so you just type this directly into your toolbar or into your address bar, excuse me. You'll pull up this site. It's got a lot of information with hours on the sides. And at the very bottom of the page down here is this place here where they've got a link to brochures. And oddly enough, they have brochures in English, Dutch, Spanish, of course. And then this brochure has a map, very nice little map with a description of everything that you'll see in on the site. So I highly recommend printing that and just taking it with you. I also have on this side the Oxford Archaeological Guide for Spain. As I said, the brochure from the website, well, I didn't say it, but the brochure from the website is much better. This guide only has about 2 pages of actual information on Munigua. But what this guide really is good for is it has this map you'll see right here on like the 3rd or 4th page, I don't know, which has numbers for all the different archaeological sites across Spain. It's very good for a planning tool. If you're driving somewhere or you're staying in a particular town, you can see how close other archaeological sites are, not just Roman, but Muslim and others as well. So it's a very good guide to have if you're going to be spending time in Spain. It's a bit dated, right? So it's 1998, but the information in general for a lot of sites is very good. Some they've got maps of different buildings, and you can actually see how they are supposed to look. And then it's because it's this old, right? Sometimes can be a little difficult to find. I found it on eBay for a very reasonable price. As I said at the beginning, the remains of the temple platform are really the most impressive part of the town. You see that from the north side view here of the hill, and then the north side of the platform. From the town itself, if you come around to the south side, you can see that it's more terraced from the houses at the bottom up to the baths, which are located in this area over here, up to the forum over here, the middle temple, and then the upper temple sanctuary at the top. The construction in many of the places is a layering of brick and brick-faced concrete, and then stone-faced concrete, irregular stone-faced concrete, often referred to as opus incertum, which you see a lot of in the Roman construction in southern Spain. I didn't know this technique was a thing of layering the brick and the opus incertum, but it's very common. We saw it in Cordoba. At first, it looks like it's some sort of modern restoration, but it's not. It's actually contemporary with the site. This is a scale model that you'll find at the site. It's extremely helpful for being able to visualize where the different buildings are that you're looking at, what their functions were, and how to get from one to another. Also very impressive to see the terracing as you see the houses at the bottom, then the forum, the first temple, and then the upper temple and sanctuary at the top of the platform. You'll also find some small plaques at some of the different buildings so that you can see actually how those particular buildings were used, what the different rooms are, because sometimes, when you're looking at stuff that's in this kind of ruinous state, it can be very hard to tell what the functions of the different rooms are. And actually, some cases, what rooms you're actually looking at and where rooms should be. So they did a very good job in that regard at this site, giving you some landmarks to look for. Then when you walk to the top, which you come all the way, you might as well. It's not really that hard. From the top, you can really see why the Romans chose this site. There's a really amazing view out on kind of a small valley, and the temple at the top must have been seen from quite a ways away. Here you can kind of see the semicircular piece of the sanctuary, which again really looks a lot like the Temple of Fortuna Primigena at Palestrina, and then the sanctuary building that sits just behind that. That semicircular area is right over here, and again you can really get a sense for this brick layered with the opus and cerdum work in these structures at the top. When you actually enter the town, which you come from the north and then it sweeps you around to the east side to come in, you'll first hit the baths, with the most obvious portion of that being the caldarium with the raised floor, so that they could be providing heating for the floor and the room itself. There are several frescoes that are remaining, which they're definitely not first style Roman wall paintings, but based on what's there, I couldn't tell you what it was. Anyway, it's still very impressive to see the color is still there 2,000 years later. They've done some protection. There's a roofing over the top of the baths to continue to protect it. It was very enjoyable to see, even though, like I said, I couldn't tell you exactly what they were paintings of. So there are a total of 7 houses that have been identified. I think that's the right number. But only 2 are obvious as domus, large houses. I don't, if you have 2, is that domi? I looked it up, and Webster says the plural is domus. So anyway, there are obviously 2 domus at the bottom of the hill. You can sort of see in this picture this large one here, and then this is another picture from the top of another. While I could easily identify the atrium and possibly a few of the cubiculi, I struggled to identify the rest. So it's lucky that they had some plaques on the site, which were very helpful in identifying where the different aspects of these domus were. So anyway, enough about the site. You can read the guides. There are tons of folks who have taken overhead videos with drones. If you speak Spanish, there are several archaeological videos, all on YouTube, and then there's lots of websites you can go and read. Again, you translate the sites. If you use Google Chrome, you can just pop on and click the little translate button. But if you do decide to go, I had a very hard time, as I said, finding some of the directions to the site in English, and it took a lot of time researching. So hopefully the video as follows will make it a little easier for some of you. There are no tour buses that I could find or day trips that you could arrange. The site isn't near a major town. So the primary options to me seem to be hire a guide, and I'm not real big on hiring guides, at least not guides that will drive you someplace, or rent a car and go yourself. So that's what we decided to do, partially also because I wanted to go visit Carmona, which is a site to the south of the town by about 15 miles or something, which also has some Roman ruins, which I could cover in another video. So if you choose to make a day of it, I'd suggest renting a car. We rented our car from at Seville. It was the easiest way there is to make a reservation with the typical U.S. rental car agencies at the train station. I've got it. The train station is here, and the rental car agencies are a little bit to the north there. There's also rental car agencies at the airport, but that's pretty far from the old part of the city where we were staying. And I think you can also rent a car in town or go with a cheaper European rental agency. But of course, time is money, and I didn't want to have any trouble renting the car and picking it up. So I just went with, I don't know, Budget Hertz, Avis, one of those, and got it at the train station. Keep in mind, as you'll see in the next couple slides, there is a dirt road that you need to go on, and it gets a little sketchy in places. I've got a photo of the dirt road here. This is actually a very nice part of the road. So it can get eroded by rainwater, those sorts of things, and a little bit washed out. Not terrible, but we decided to get a crossover car so we'd have a little bit of extra clearance, and then really maxed out the insurance. On the last two trips I've taken where I've rented cars, I did damage. Probably shouldn't admit it, but I did damage to both cars. We went to Caminito del Rey, which is a great hike I'd recommend north of Malaga. In that case, I backed up the rental car, which happened to be a Mercedes, into a rock. And then on this particular trip, I scratched the entire side of the car when I got too close to a bush on the dirt road. So on international travel, I always pay for maxing out the insurance, and I have never regretted it. So for my description here, I'd break the trip, basically the directions, into three sets. The first is driving on a regular road, in this case, leaving from Seville to Villanueva del Rio y Minas. I'm sure I pronounced that wrong, but anyway, I'm not going to cover that. That's just pretty much depends which direction you're coming from, and it's just Google Maps. It's not real hard. The second is, as you can see here, the dirt road. When you leave Villanueva and you drive along the dirt road to get to the parking area of the site, and then finally there's about a 2.5 kilometer walk. It's actually very nice little walk, which I'll go over to get from the gate to the actual site. So one hint here that I didn't know at the time was if you actually type in, I believe it's this address right here, that's actually the parking for Munigua, then you can actually use Google Maps to map out the route along the dirt road. But I thought I would just explain a little bit so people don't get lost and really understand where they're going. So you leave Villanueva and you go along this road. I don't believe it's dirt until you cross over this bridge. I don't remember when exactly it shifts from a paved road to dirt, but you go over the bridge. There's actually another road that you can use if you're not careful, that is actually into the riverbed. So avoid that. Go over the bridge. It's very nice. And then you hang a right here and start going up. Then as you're heading along, you'll pass a little reservoir. It's apparently used by the Spanish military for target practice. So stay on the road and don't go over the fence. As I recall, there's a pretty well marked fence. And then as you go along, you'll actually come into the town of San Fernando, and you'll have to make a left. It's pretty easy because there's this big sign with a left-hand turn arrow. So go ahead and make a left there, and then go out of town in this direction to the west. So once you pass San Fernando, as I said, you're coming along. It starts to get a little sketch at some point along here. So definitely after you cross the railroad tracks, I would suggest slowing down a bit and paying a lot of attention to areas of the dirt road that might be washed out. That's usually, we started to get, there's actually a little orchard here. I don't know what they're growing, but after you get going through that orchard, there are lots of little turns that you might make a mistake on. So just keep heading north and you'll be going in the right direction. Then as you're coming north and you're staying on you're keeping the railroad tracks on your left, you'll see a parking area. It won't be very obvious. It wasn't super obvious for us, and we actually passed it, which was a bit problematic. We actually drove to the gate, and then this road was not wide enough for us to turn around, and so we had to back down the hill to get into the parking area. It's actually very easy to see the parking area. You'll see this set of signs on the left-hand side of the road, and you park basically by this tree over here, and then walk up to the gate here you can see. Now, as I said, you sort of have to watch the hours. We got there at about 10:30, so the site had been open for a half hour. I don't know if this gate is normally locked. There's actually a farm, ranch, I guess you might say, on the other side. And so this gate may be actually unlocked, and the site itself, which there's some more gates, may be locked. So again, go to the site, the website, look at the times, make sure you're on the right day and time when you can get in. There's this first gate, then you'll see lots of cows, lots and lots of cows. A second gate, I don't know where it was somewhere in this area here. And then the final third gate, which actually lets you in. When you go through this first gate, it's actually just it's just got a bolt. So it seemed a little odd, but you just go ahead and open the bolt, walk through the gate, close the gate behind you and rebolt it. You know, if you grow up in the countryside, you know if a gate's open, leave it open. If a gate's closed, leave it closed. And in this case, if you don't want to let the cows out, make sure you close it. And there are lots of cows. So if you're afraid of cows, I guess don't be. Everyone tells me you shouldn't be, but they're awful big. They're everywhere. In this case, they were actually on the path. It's only a 2.5-kilometer path, so we kind of walked off the path to walk around these guys. They were just sitting on the road. And there are occasionally these little signs that help you stay on the path, but it's pretty obvious. It's what all roads lead to Rome, and I guess in the same vein, I'm told that all paths lead to Munigua. But anyway, you want the shortest path because you know, if you're going to walk 5 kilometers, you know, 2.5 there, 2.5 back, you don't want to have too many wrong turns. At some point, you get to see the platform, and it just becomes so obvious. But anyway, I'm told don't be afraid of cows. So anyway, we walked right past them, and they didn't seem to care. So as I said, there's a total of three gates. So there's the one that I showed in the previous video, previous slide. You pass the cows, and then somewhere along the line, you go past this gate, and I believe it actually has a cow grating on it to keep the cows from coming through. The gate was open when we got there, so see a gate that's open, leave it open. See a gate that's closed, leave it closed. So always close that first gate, and don't close these if they're open. So you walk over it, you sort of go up this rise a little bit, and then there's a Y, and you make a right at the Y there, and just kind of keep going. And then as you get closer to the third gate, right? This is the third gate. That's actually the entry into the site itself. And what's the Boy Scouts marching song? Be prepared, as through my life you march along. So I'd suggest wearing sturdy shoes. When we were there, it had rained the night before, and actually it started raining on our way out. It's not as obvious from these pictures. And there's a little stream that we had to cross. Not a big deal, but there's some rocks along the sides. You can jump from rock to rock, or if you're more manly and you've got some nice heavy boots, you just walk right through. I imagine if it hadn't just rained, this would not be such a big deal. But then you also have lots of uneven rocks and uneven surfaces. This is an old Roman road or street or path, I don't know, but it's a good ankle twister. So I'd suggest wearing some heavy shoes. I wore hiking boots. And then, of course, you're pretty far out. So water, food, a phone, anything else you might want to have in case you have car trouble, right? And so that is how to get to Munigua. So hopefully you found this video helpful, maybe even enjoyable. I don't know. So if you could, please go ahead and like and subscribe so I'll know that it was worth putting together, and maybe I'll put together a few more. And then again, if you have any questions or comments, go ahead and leave them down in the chat. It's nice to know that someone actually might be watching this at some point.